This one just gives you an idea. So first you can watch what I do and then you can follow along. For this part, I'm going to first wet my brush to pick up some water. And if I just dip it in here and pull it out, I don't think you can see it on the camera, but there's a drop of water that's about to drip from this because there's a lot. So to make sure I don't have too much, I'm gonna go like this on the edge of the cup. It removes excess water. That's one of my tips, to keep it from dripping too much. Then I'm gonna go ahead and pick a color. Now, for this exercise, you could use any color, but if you wanna try testing out different colors for your flowers, you can maybe try this red right here, which is next to the light green. And I'm gonna go back and forth between my water and this to make sure I collect enough water. And I'm gonna make a puddle like that. So go ahead and try that. Hello. I went ahead and checked out that watercolor artist you mentioned. I think Andrea Nelson. She's really good, I think, as an instructor. And her exercises are really good.
Copied some of her stuff that she's done. I really like. She's so upbeat. And,
Yeah.
You know, she said, "Hey, there's no mistakes." And
That's true.
yada yada yada.
Yada, yada, yada. That's true. There's no such thing as mistakes, just learning opportunities. All right, so we're beginning just by making a puddle here. And we're doing a warm-up, so we're not starting on this yet. We're just practicing the wet-on-wet technique here. So go ahead and pick up some of this red color until you've got a puddle like this. You might need to go back to your water cup to collect more water. Hi, welcome back. I'll set this aside because we're not really looking at it right now. And just look up whenever you're ready, when you've got some of this. You don't have to make this much, but when you've got your own puddle of this light tea of a consistency, go ahead and look up so I know that you're ready.
Use the same red all the time, right?
Use the same what? I'm sorry?
Same red, same color.
Yeah, you can use this color. Yeah, this will produce a pink once we put it on the paper because it's very light. And for those who just joined, it's... Let me take a look. You might need more water if it looks very dark. Okay. Yeah, so if you've got a newer palette, it's going to do that. It's going to come into itself and make it.
Hi, Susan.
That looks good.
Does anyone want an apron? Kathy?
No.
No?
Oh, yeah.
No apron? No?
Good.
That one is here. I'm not going to use that. This is when I started using that. It was going to take them.
Okay, I think everyone's got the puddle. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to do the wet on wet technique. Don't worry about the shape when you do this part, but first watch and I'll let you know when it's your turn to try it. So I've got a lot of this paint here. And I just discovered I can zoom in like this, so you can see this better. I'm just going to make one big blob right here. This is on our warm-up page. And you can see how watery this is just from the look of it. That's a good sign. So while this is still wet, I'm going to quickly go back into this same color, going back and forth in here a lot so I pick up a lot of pigment, and then just drop it on one edge. And it'll produce that wet on wet effect where it blooms. And this has to be done quickly enough to where that first blob you painted is still wet. If it's not wet, then that effect won't happen. So you can go ahead and try that yourself. And I'm gonna do it along with you to help you remember. So first, big blob. Doesn't have to be circular. It can be with some random shape like that. And make sure it's pretty watery to where you can see it almost puddling there, or at least there's a nice shine to it. And then quickly just pick up paint directly from here and drop it in on one spot. You could try the center or the edge. And you should see it bloom like that. Anyone have any questions? It's not too dark, although it's already starting to dry, so I would recommend having even more water in your brush. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit of water.
No, they're just warming up.
Okay, can I put more of this right now, directly with the brush? Yeah, okay, that should be good amount. And try dropping some on the wet area, maybe right here. It should bloom a little bit. Okay, see it starting to bloom a little bit there. If it's not blooming as much, just do even more water in your brush. If you don't see the blooming effect, it means either your brush is too dry or the paper, the water that you have on your paper is already dry. Any questions? Oh, you got it.
Okay.
Blooming here.
All right.
Yeah.
First thing to do is
Yeah. If you want to experiment, maybe try doing another blob where your first one is where the blob is lighter.
No, these are flowers. These are flowers.
This is a warm-up exercise, so it doesn't have to be a flower. These are blobs right now. We're making blobs. So we'll do a few more of these as an exercise. If just notice how much water you have on here when you start. If it's a lot of water, it'll start to run and puddle, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't like that effect, you can put less water next time.
The middle blob. You're trying to get this, to get some water. And it keeps resisting.
Yeah, if you have a new palette, the paint that you put on there is going to have some resistance and it won't spread as much as what you see up here.
You're just trying to get a blob of paint on here.
So I'm gonna make a few more as an exercise. And I encourage you to try out different amounts of water to see what works for you. And for this blob that you put down initially, try to make it a lighter pink. So if yours looks very dark, I recommend maybe even starting another puddle, but use less of the paint and more of the water. I'll come help out. If anyone's stuck or has any questions, I
You know what I'm saying?
These little blobs.
Oh yeah, that will happen. If you want to remove those, I can show you. Yeah, you can dry the brush like this, and then go back and right on that wet spot to kind of vacuum it up. Yeah, that's also due to the paper, so you can blame the paper.
Okay.
So we'll try new paper once we finish using up this set, where it shouldn't do that. I've been testing out different papers lately.
Those look like eyeballs.
They do. Oh, very bloody eyeballs. No, Morgan. Sorry, I put that thought into your head.
So she's showing you. Can you show her the picture of the flower?
Oh yeah. To give you a little bit of a preview for anyone who joined late, we're painting these hibiscus flowers. So right now what we're doing is practicing this effect that you see here where it blends before we try it out on a flower. So as a reminder, if yours is not blooming, it either means the water on your paper is too dry or your brush is too dry. The key is that both are wet.
You can keep adding more water if you didn't know you had to wet your paper.
Huh?
I didn't know you had to wet your paper.
Well, this blob here is the wet part that I'm talking about, of wetting the paper. Yeah. So wet paper plus wet paintbrush equals the bloom. Yeah, if either one of them is dry, then it won't work. That's why it's called wet on wet. Wet paintbrush on wet paper. So just play around with this and you can fill up the paper a bit.
This is the practice, and this is gonna be the one we're gonna really do. We'll see. I think you are going.
And if you find that you have too much water on your paper, like this, it's running a lot, dry out your brush on the paper towel and then soak it up with the brush.
How come I don't have pink?
Well, the pink is from this red, but very little, like a small amount of it, so it's diluted. It makes it lighter. Oh, I see. You're using orange. This one is gonna make the pink color.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So go ahead. Yeah, rinse this out.
Which one?
So this one's more of a pink. It's next to the green.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, also, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the class, I brought something to try out for anyone who has tremors in their hand. There are these weights that you can add to the paintbrush that might help. Is there anyone who'd like to try it out? Anyone have tremors in their hands?
What is
No?
it?
So this is a weight that can be added to the end of the paintbrush. It goes on like this, and it helps stabilize the paintbrush if your hands shake a lot. So if anyone wants to try it, let me know. I know in some of my classes there are participants who have tremors, and I wanted to see if this would help. So I've got this on the side for anybody who'd like to try it. Oops, this is a little hard to see. So the goal here is wet on wet, and starting with a lighter color for the first part, and then a darker color on the second, which just means more pigment in this case. And in a moment I can give you a tip on what to do if you have too much. Actually, that was what I was getting into earlier, which is to dry out the brush. Okay. Everyone's got a taste of the wet on wet here. How's it going here?
Okay.
Okay, I see you've got the two different tones. You've got the light one and the dark.
Yeah, I barely did the light.
You need more water if that's the case. You can load your brush with more water too. What you'll want is to have even more water on the surface. And if you're quick, you can go back right here. Yeah, and also, okay, so one thing I recommend, what you're doing right now is you're spreading out, right? Do your best to do it in as few strokes as you can, because when you rub it like that,
And then push it back
paint into
the paint.
yeah, it's also rubbing
So
it
it's
off.
wet on wet.
So try to use less strokes. Or
And
try
then
more gentle.
darkening
And
it.
you want to do it quickly so that before this dries, you add
And
this
then
darker
transition
color.
blends into it.
Now right now this is a bit dry, so I'm gonna help you out a little bit.
Take some light.
And the moon is right in the middle.
Yeah, you could try it out in the middle, because that's what we're gonna do for the flowers. You want it to be at least this way. You see how shiny it is?
Yeah.
You want that shine. And then go ahead and try adding the. Yeah, there you go. Now this is still quite dry, so make it a little more. Make sure you add more water.
So you make a circle with the pink. And then one part of it,
There you go.
you draw
Okay, that's
this
enough.
dark red.
Now this one won't because it's already dry.
Well, that's too
Does that
dry.
make sense?
That's just gonna tell. Yeah.
So you've got the bloom here
Well,
now.
just make
So
another
as long as your paper's wet,
Wet,
and the brush is
right.
wet,
This
this
is
will
practice.
bloom. These ones haven't because it was dry.
Make it a little better.
Yeah.
Put oil in it.
Good work. Okay, I think everyone's got the hang of the. Let's see. I think yours also dried before your put on the second one. Yeah.
Do you want part of it? So you want to make it in this one.
Can I show you something? So to achieve an effect, sometimes you have to work kind of quickly because the paper or the paint will dry. So I'm gonna show
And then
you
you
how
want to
that
drop a
is
little bit
easily
red into it.
This is really wet, maybe too wet because you can see it puddle if I tilted it. So I'm going to actually borrow this, dry off this paintbrush like that, and then soak it up on the parts where there's too much water. But you want to make sure it's this shiny to make sure it's wet enough. Yeah, do that. So grab one of this and try it on this one. Yeah, just drop it in the middle. You see how it started to bloom a little bit right there? Now, if you want it to bloom more, make sure you add more water to this, and then more.
A little more water to that one. Without the red. So it's wet.
So that will bloom, although it's not as dark. So now make sure you have this enough of this
Dry
in
it off a little bit.
to make a darker marker.
Yeah,
in the
this,
middle.
right up there a little bit.
Yeah. One way to
Dip
test
it
it
in
is
your red again.
if you wipe just a little bit to see how. Okay, that should be a little bit darker actually.
Just drop
You
it
can
in.
see it. So try grabbing more paint.
You just keep it
Yeah.
Go ahead and
If
try
you're
it
not
here.
to paint it, you can let it just bloom all by itself.
Okay, so what's happening here is because your brush is still drier, it's actually picking up the water that's on here, so we need a lot more water.
So like,
Don't be
If
afraid
you
to
don't want
dip
to
your
paint
brush
it, you
in
want it to
water.
do it by itself.
Yeah, there you go. And then more pigment will make it even darker.
So they do have the better. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone have any questions before we
Do you have
start?
any questions?
Yeah, you talked about that.
well, I gotta get from here, you're reviewing
That's okay.
things, so I don't know what
Okay, I think you got it on some of these. So the wet on wet technique is where you've got a wet surface and a wet brush, which causes it to blend like this, what you have right here. So you had put down this first layer of light pink and then you put a darker color on top. And because both were wet, then it started to spread. That's the effect that we're looking for. We got it on these two and not on this one quite.
If you make it,
Yeah.
if you make a pink circle, you want it to be wet. So add a little more water to it.
Yeah. And I can demonstrate one too.
We'll fill the whole thing in.
Fill it in?
So it's pink.
Yeah, the whole thing's wet.
Okay, now what you want to do is drop some red into it.
You're a good teacher.
So drop some red.
Try putting it in the center. There you go. It's blooming a little bit there. If you want it to bloom more, then you need more water. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can I demonstrate one more for you really quick? Okay. So first, I'm just going to reactivate this one because it's like pink here. This is the initial wet on the paper. That's a bit too colorful for my face, so I'm going to dry this to dry out the brush and then soak it. It makes it a bit more even. But what we're looking for here is that it's shiny. That's how you can tell it's quite wet. And while it's still shiny, I'm going to pick up some of this. But also make sure it's not too dry, so I'm going to test it out on here and make sure it's still fairly wet and not too dark. Drop that right there. You should start to, you see how it's getting on its own? Yeah. It takes some practice to get used to how much water you need or how little. So don't worry if it's off or not quite what you're looking for. You're just going to have to keep tweaking it as you try things out. Yeah. Okay, I think everyone's doing a great job with the wet on wet technique here. So we'll go ahead and try painting the flowers now.
We're ready to doing the flowers.
It's all practice. Everything is always practice. It's not always going to be perfect. I like to say you have to paint maybe 100 ugly paintings before you can get a nice one. So don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't look quite right. But today we're going to try. We're going to practice. So now we'll pull out the second blank sheet that we have. We can set this aside now. And I have this here for reference. Now here's the real flower here. So this hibiscus flowers have 5 petals typically, and they're also kind of wide and a bit loose, so you don't have to be perfect with the shape. Just make sure it's kind of round and it can have kind of wavy edges and frills. One tip that I have for making sure you have 5 petals is to make 5 dots. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's see, so I'm going to keep using this larger brush for now. And because I want to use the same colors for mine, I'm going to keep using this pink here. Well, on my other example I have orange and purple, which you can try later. Let me zoom in here. Okay. So I'm going to pick an area near the top of my page, and this first part you can watch before you start. And I'm going to leave some space on the side so that I have enough space for my flower. So maybe on this paper I'll put it right around here so I can make a flower about this big. And I'm just going to put down 5 dots that are kind of evenly spaced out. That's my reference for the petals. And then from there I'm going to use this as the center point of my petal and make these big shapes here, maybe one at a time, and just make them like kind of like almost like wide ovals. And it's okay if they overlap a bit, and it's okay if you leave a kind of a blank center. And as soon as you're done with that, fill it in before it dries too much. Any questions on that part? I know it might seem a bit complicated, so I'll make another one. But you can go ahead and try it and also follow along with me on this next one here. So starting off with this light pink or light color that you're using, just like we did earlier. And then I'm making 5 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's just the tip of my brush here. Yeah, you can just place a dot like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of just a reference point. Let me make sure this is pretty watery. Once you have those 5 dots, go ahead and paint some oval-like shapes on them as with the dot as the center point or the bottom of your oval. And it's okay to let them overlap here. You can make bigger petals too. And fill it in right away. You can keep painting over your flower to keep it wet if you'd like to. And as soon as you're done with that, you can drop in that darker color in the center like we did earlier. I'll go ahead and put that in on mine just to demonstrate, and then I'll come around and help anyone who's looking for help. This might be a little tricky, so There, that's how it looks when it's got the darker color inside. Make sure you fill in your petals. Any questions? Everyone's taking a stab at it. Feel free to interrupt me with questions if you have any. I'll keep painting along here. Remember, it's probably not gonna go the way you expect, especially when you're trying it for the first time. So if it's a disaster, that's totally normal.
I'm choosing to leave.
Okay. Thanks for coming. I also like to remind students it's taken me thousands of hours of painting to get to where I'm at, and today you're putting in 1 hour. So don't be too hard on yourself. But you also might find that you really enjoy your painting too, so just be open to what comes up and see what you can learn from what you're making. If it's not where you like it to be, then think about what you can adjust for the next one. Or ask me questions. Well, go ahead and fill up this page with maybe 3, depending on how big yours are, 3 or more flowers.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess,
Oh, you've got the blend here.
I did,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Good job. I'll just make sure to keep that first initial layer of the petal wet before you add the dark part. If it already dried, you can re-wet it by adding more paint on top or water. So just as a reminder, if it's not spreading, it's too dry. If it's spreading too much, it's too wet. And what you're practicing is finding that balance. You're back. Once we're done with this part, we can move on to, I would say we should do the stems and leaves next. Maybe just the leaves. And then for the final part, we'll add the stamen, which is in the middle. Anyone want any help? Any question?
I was wondering, like here, I have this outline. Is there a technique to avoid having that outline?
Yeah, so one thing you can do is make it more wet,
Okay.
or instead of having that outline, you can go ahead and paint the whole petal first, one at a time, where it's filled in. Because that outline is from that layer drying before you get to fill it in. Yeah.
So can I fix it or just leave it?
I think this one will have to leave it, but on the next one, try filling in each petal at a time instead of outlining it. That might be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How's it going here?
It's
Would you
hard
like
not
some
to go
tips?
back and help. It's hard not to go back.
You've done a good job with the shapes here. Can I show you how to make one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's already dry.
So to make
Yeah, I
it
think
blend
that's
more,
what I
you
did.
gotta make sure this first layer is still wet before you add that darker color.
Okay.
So I would recommend, let's see. Can I demonstrate on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try it on the back. So it might be easier to do it this way than what I showed you. If you do one petal at a time, let's say you've got an oval here, and then just make another one next to it,
Okay.
another one there. And it can be a bit off, like it could look like it has more than 5 petals. It's
Yeah.
not too big of a deal, but we're making something like that.
Okay.
This is very watery, you see how it's puddling?
Yeah. Good.
I'm just gonna dry this off and then soak this up a little bit because it's too much water for me.
Okay. All right. I got it.
Now this is still wet, it's
Yeah.
very shiny. While it's still shiny and wet, I'm gonna pick up a lot of this red here and drop it right there. Make it bloom like that.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah. Give that a try.
thank you.
Yeah, you might want to dry this off first a little bit because it's very red right now. There you go. Okay. I think a lot of us are ready for the next step. So if wherever you're at, I recommend you look up to see how this next part is done, and you can continue if you're still working after this. But right now I'm going to demonstrate how to do the leaves. So I'm making sure first of all, my brush is clean, that I've rinsed off all of the red. I've got most of it off here. And now I'm going to pick up some of this, let's say this dark green right here. It's next to the light green. And it might take me a little while because I want to make sure this is very dark. So I'm going to test it out on this palette. Make sure this is dark enough. I need a lot more water. Okay, it's almost there. If you want more of an olive green, what you can do is mix it with this brown next to it, or you can just leave it as is. If I add a bit of this brown, it makes it more of an olive army green. So this is the kind of green that we're looking for here, where it's quite dark. It's quite thick too. It's almost like melted ice cream in consistency. And once you have that, I would recommend putting the leaves underneath the flower, coming out from behind. Starting with a line for the center, and then just painting to the side here. See, this one's blooming a bit, which I don't mind because it's still wet there. If you don't want that effect, you can either wait until it dries or leave a white gap. Sometimes that blend looks kind of nice, so I'm gonna leave mine like that. But if you wanna leave a gap, you can simply do this. Leave a little white space between your flower and the leaf, and then fill it in. And I'd recommend a couple of those, maybe 2 per flower, a shape like that. Any questions on that part? I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I made this a much darker green than my original. But one thing to keep in mind about watercolor is that it dries lighter than how it looks when you put it down. So this looks very dark now, but it'll be a bit lighter once it's dried. Anyone like any help? Okie dokie. I'm still using this larger one, but if you're more comfortable using the smaller one, you can use that instead. I'm using this larger one since I can cover more ground with it and less brush strokes. But it can also be trickier to do details with it, so use what you feel more comfortable with.
Looks like you use a lot less water than with the leaves and with the flowers.
I can, yeah.
I don't want it to spread so much.
I don't need it to, so you can make it more dry. Good observation. I can see on the screen it looks like black. But it's actually green. I wonder if I can lighten it up a little bit. Hold on. Yeah, from back there it looks really dark. Let me see here. Wonder if that helps. That's lighter. If you would like to add a stem to yours, you can. I think it can be optional because it probably looks pretty nice the way it is. But if you'd like to, I just recommend starting from the back here and just have a line going downward. It can go off the page. Maybe one for each one there. Okay. Now for this very last bit, we're gonna add the final details with the smaller brush. Does anyone need more time before we move on to the details on the flower?
Stems on.
Stems? Okay. Someone got one with the stems. Oops, I forgot to paint this back here.
I'm afraid to add a stem.
You don't have to add it. I know sometimes there's that fear of ruining the artwork by adding stuff.
That's right.
Sometimes
No one to stop.
yes, exactly. A lot of making art is editing, like what not to put in.
so.
Well, you
I'm an artist.
You're practicing.
I can sew material.
Oh.
I can cook.
Art's different, huh?
And again, it's
Art's a
very
different skill, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you don't know where to start.
Put it on the paper. This is a good start. I'd say maybe in the future paint larger, so you don't have as much of these white sticks.
Okay.
And you do have the wet on wet here, I see. I think you just had it a bit too dry the first layer before you added the second one, which is why these edges are hard.
Okay.
So you need more water, or to either add more water or work more quickly. But I think adding more water is easier.
Okay. And then, so what, I mean, I tried this because it looked like it was gonna be, but then I just didn't, I don't have the sizing right. It's not all center, you know, it has to, it can't be. Really, I want flowers.
Yeah, it's almost
Like
centered.
a baby.
Quite close. Yeah. Can I demonstrate that for you? Which one would you prefer in the any one of them? Okay. Oh, I think also the thing is because you're using a smaller brush, you're also painting smaller. So paint larger. I don't know if you were given a larger brush. This is like a medium one. Thank you. The larger one will help because you'll cover more ground more quickly. So let's say you got a good amount of color here. Quite watery here. This might be too light as it is, so let me try grabbing this one. It's a good darkness. So just automatically by using a bigger brush, it helps this painting process go faster. So I'm just gonna
Are you
paint
waving at us?
a couple of blobs here next to each other. And I want you to notice how wet this is. It's kind of tricky. Yeah, it's still a little bit dry because I see some dry spots, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this in. And some spots are too wet where I can see it puddling, so I'm gonna dry this off a bit and then soak it up. The brush is dry enough to absorb the paint on here. Now it looks a bit more even. Now while this is still shiny, I'm going to pick up this color, quite a bit of it to where it is. It looks very concentrated, not too watery. I tested it out when I would check it, and I'm just dropping it on here. That blending effect. It takes a lot of finicking with it and practicing it to figure out exactly how much water to use. You'll just have to develop a feel for it. But if you can watch out for that shininess, or it looks even, then that is wet enough to make this kind of a blue. Yeah.
But it's not really, it really isn't, and it isn't pointy like this.
No, I had drawn more just like a smooth outline, like you did here. Just like that. Yeah.
I could have done that a little larger with it.
Yeah, I would try using this brush.
The tendency is to want to go over them and over them again
Yes.
and make it better.
That's what the practice is all about. I always tell myself if I don't like the artwork I'm making right now, I can try making the next one better and pay attention to what I want to adjust for next time. See if it's like, do I need more water? Do I need to make it darker? Do I need to make it lighter? Etc., etc. I think I just lost my tiny brush. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate this last step here for the final detail, which is the stamen here, and then you can also add lines to distinguish the petals. But if you like it the way it is, you don't need to add that last bit. So for this part, I want something that's darker than what I've been using. So I'm going to use this magenta right here, which is next to this gray. In between the gray and this very dark blue, it might be more like a purple. That's purple actually. So this magenta is between the gray and the purple. And I'm gonna make sure that it's dark enough by testing it out on here first. And this does not need to be very wet because we're looking for a hard edge. We don't want it to blend. Well, that looks good to me. If you want it to look more like the red you had earlier, you can mix it with this red as well for a redder magenta. Now you can see this one's kind of dry compared to what I made before. From here, we're just gonna draw a line coming out from the center, like a big curve. And then at the end of that line, we'll add some dots surrounding that edge. And then we'll apply that to each one here. Oops, it's not quite dark enough. And that's that for that center piece. Just a line and a few dots.
What color are you using? Watercolor?
Good question. I'm using this magenta right here. It's in between the gray and the purple on this spot.
Find the gray and the purple.
Let me help you out. There are a lot of colors in that palette. This one right here.
This is what you're using.
Yeah. Does anyone else have your trouble finding the color?
It wasn't me, I'm not.
Gray and the purple?
I don't know what I got.
Oh yeah, that's magenta.
Yeah. Oh, I'm using the wrong brush here
Is
anyway.
that magenta right there?
Yeah, you got it. That's magenta. If it looks too light, use more pigment. If it's too dry, add more water. I think so. That was this one, right? Yeah. And you can mix it with the red a little bit if you don't want it to be as pink or magenta-y. If you want more of a reddish color. I'm making mine quite dark just by using a lot of pigment and not as much water. You'll have to play with the amounts and try testing it out on your palette. Remember, you have your original warm-up sheet. You can test out paints on there as well. I almost forgot about it. You can test out if your paints are too dry or too light or too dark. Paint on that initial warm-up sheet first if you're afraid of messing up your painting. For the very final bit, you can add lines to separate each petal. And I think for that, you can look at this one here for reference.
Use a little brush for that.
Yeah, continue to use a little brush. The little brush is great for finer details, and the larger brush is great for filling in areas.
Are you using a magenta or you're using the red again?
I'm using, it's actually a mix of both, but I would recommend the red, actually. It would, I think, look more cohesive with the rest of the flower. So I recommend using red for these lines here to separate your petals. I just turned this hibiscus into a 4-petal one by accident. That's okay. It can be a new species.
We're talking at the same time.
Yes, exactly. I can also make up my own flowers, so that's okay. We're artists here. We can make whatever we want. All right. Since we're about at the top of the hour for the class, you can keep painting. Today I have a little survey if you're willing to fill it out, just for some feedback, and it's totally anonymous. There's no spot for writing your name unless you want me to know who you are. I'm going to pass out a pencil and the sheet. If you have time to fill it out, I'd appreciate it. And if you